Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Fight Chat Friday from TKD Coach Academy. We're on episode 158 and we're looking back at the World Championships in Tampere, Finland, and we're going to have a look this week at the minus 75 kilo division. We're not going straight to the final. We're going to have a look at one of the really interesting preliminary rounds and a fight between the eventual World Champion Magomed Naurdinov from Norway and his matches against Sweden, against Jahangir Mirzoev from Sweden, and coached by, he's with Patrick Karlstrom's club, I think, and really, really interesting tactical match. Guys are, there's a lot of similarities in what they do and quite a few important differences that we can dig into as we get into the match. But for me, this was definitely an exciting one, and it was a potential banana skin for Magomed as he was making his way to the final as well. So we jump straight into that one and have a quick look.
Yeah, so this was mentioned in the comments of a couple of our videos as potentially Magomed's one of his tricky matches. So yeah, a little bit of a twist and kick there. We don't see that too often. So right off the back, the minute the toe is lifted by Magomed, coming straight through a hands, and that is a good recipe there if you want to nullify the side kick. Magomed is known to have a really good effective side kick. Anybody who watched episode 157 last week would have seen we spoke about the stepping of James Stute. And here we see it again from Magomed to use the setups of his side kick. So sometimes lift and shift, sometimes using step ups and clearing a nice path then to get that side kick in there on the last one.
Yeah, and we can see from Mirzoev there we have, quite a deep shift, so taking both legs in generally with him when he tests into his stance and looking to create those opportunities to go to hands. Definitely confident to throw the kitchen sink, so he's got quite a bit of variation in terms of what he'll throw. What I thought was interesting when we watched this one, that lead hand, almost distracting back fist style thing, crept out from both guys, so a little bit from Jahangir, but quite a few attempts from Magomed, and I think almost just creating a space and testing for a reaction to see what comes next. But it's almost going back to the early 80s and the distracting back fist side kick to the hip, that kind of fake high kick low thing that, but it's actually, there we go, thanks Mago. So yeah, but it's getting to be fairly effective because the distance is close enough to where you do have to respect that front hand.
Yeah, it does score, and it does, just like we said earlier. But I think that he is being very, very disciplined in his setup and his style here, because he's known to fancy a fight and fancy a bit of a barn burner from time to time, but he's known to be given out to by Master Willie as well for not using that side kick more. So he's been very, very disciplined here, looking to get his scores on the board and have a good strategic battle, not get into a fight. Whereas we can see Sweden here looking to be a bit more messy and mess things up and pull Magomed around, be a bit more unpredictable with his shots and to catch him with things on the sly.
Yeah, I think we do see some really good attempts to get the legs engaged then after the hands as well from Jahangir. But the Magomed, I think, is always his range on his side kick is very threatening. He can kick from all distances, so he can cover a lot of space and he can make that side kick from very, very close. This again, we hate when we see it. The minus point each way, it does nothing but make the match more tense. And asking competitors to calm down when it's not that they're not calm, they're enthused, they're into it, they're mixing it up. I just don't like seeing that, and I'd much rather, there's no bad blood, there's no illegal techniques being thrown, there's nothing nasty happening. I'd rather just let them get on with it.
Yeah, and that was the first attempt. Then we seen Magomed actually force the hands a little bit and get to a blitz, and I think that all came from that earlier exchange. Of course, he was down 2-1 on the scoreboard as well, but a little bit more of fire in his belly then from that last exchange, and then he gets back to his disciplined side kick again. So that is the sign of a champion, someone who can kind of pull it back when he needs to, and then get back to the drawing board of what he needs to do best as well. I think you have a couple of points to say on this part as well, Adrian.
Yeah, we'll bring it back. This particular exchange absolutely baffles me, but we end up with again, Magomed kind of flicks out the front hand, and it doesn't really look from this angle like there's any contact, but maybe there is. It's very hard to say, but there's definitely nothing much as the boys come together and end up in a very standard kind of clinch. But it results in a minus point each way, and also Magomed getting a point, which puts him 1 point ahead on 3 cards. And the thing that are 2 points in one card. The thing for me though is that 3-1 on the decision seems to get inside Jahangir's head a little bit, and for the remaining 40 seconds, like, he does seem to come out all guns blazing and chasing, where there isn't a really big mountain to climb, and I don't know that he needs to try and create that much pressure that fast. And I think it lets Mago from this point forward, play a reactive game and just put that side kick out there and look to build a lead. And it basically kind of leads the rest of the fight along the same pattern.
Yeah, like, there were 45 seconds to go. You have a bit more time to just be patient, squeeze the space more, and try to pick off a clearer shot as you try to squeeze him to the edge and build up those warnings. He did build up the warnings to 3, but he was a bit more looser in his defense and gave away some shots and walked into a couple of side kicks on the way as well, which didn't help his cause. So I think just a little bit more of a more calculated approach with that 45 seconds, not just go gung-ho with the 45 seconds left, would have been a better strategy. But definitely put it up to Magomed. Didn't make it easy for him. And a nice first match for him on his path to the world final for champ status. So I'm sure we'll cover him again in a couple of videos in this review of the Worlds.
Before we just finish off on this one and dig into the styles of the fighters, this last exchange, I'll move forward. This last exchange baffles me as well, because we have a stop here, and the referee has called stop before the fighters have exited the ring. So we've got a situation where there hasn't really been much happen. There's been a show of a leg and a go to hands. Maybe Magomed gets the front hand in play, not too sure. But either way, the referee is called stop at this point in time. So when this plays off, although the time is stopped, you still lose 4 seconds on the clock. And we bring everybody back, and then it's nothing happened. So I genuinely am.
Should it not be a warning for the exit? Yeah.
Well, it was stopped before the exit. I mean, that part of it is correct. But and then we have that one last one. But it's just a very strange decision to take in terms of, well, what was it that prompted the stop as the guys were moving towards the corner. And for me, when matches are close, and maybe at this stage it was already beyond reach for Jahangir, but what was the advantage in that? Maybe you could have forced 2 warnings, and maybe that brings it to I don't think that would even have brought it to a 6th warning for Magomed. Like, I don't think it was going to have any impact in that sense. But it was just a case of the continuation is needed in order to get a score. And not to single out that particular referee, but we did see that a lot, and particularly in team sparring at the championships, where there was a few stops and people brought way back in from the edge that are taking away the possibility of building scores and developing that continuation. And that's not a nice development. Hopefully we won't see too much of that. But let's have a look at the
so
numbers.
Moving on to the numbers. Exactly. So we see again, similar to last week, the side kick and the front leg carry being the major keys here in this one. We see the hands come into play a little bit more. So if we just have a broad scope of it, we can see Magomed with the blue bars there. He's outworking his opponent with the front leg, particularly with the side kick. Everywhere else, we're kind of matching, apart from the back fist from Magomed, none really making contact, which actually usually set up his side kick. So they kind of go hand in hand. Everywhere else is kind of matched, even the fouls and the warnings as well. So obviously there is your winning recipe for Magomed. It seems to be the side kicks were the difference.
Yeah, definitely, and we can see where Jahangir goes to hands a little bit more, but he's just not getting the return. So even though he has a couple more occasions where he's traded to hands, it's not getting the return, it's not getting the big finish, and that's maybe what's needed to create the separation between the two guys here. Again, we're looking at a very similar number of contacts made. So even though Magomed had a higher work rate, the number of actual contacts made is very similar, which means, as you'd expect, his accuracy was slightly lower than Jahangir, and of course we have the same warnings and the same fouls. So we're not seeing a massively different work rate, but we are seeing how Magomed's using those carries and the side kicks to dictate ring position and to dictate the distance between himself and Jahangir a little bit better. And as you said, the number of side kicks landed is the clear differentiator between the two guys in this particular match.
Yeah, because the score value of each shot as well is quite important. Obviously,
Yeah.
with we also see there as well, for every shot that Yanger threw, it was 1.28 for Magomed. So we compare that to what we seen last week, a little bit of a lower volume. These guys matching each other a little bit more. And then obviously we see the return coming through because of the value of those scores, particularly with the kicks from Magomed. Not as many punches. Obviously, 2 point score for body kicks. No head kicks really tried or landed from my point of view in this one. So
Yeah.
body kicks with the double of the value of punching. We always say punchers cannot be outworked in terms of volume. You have to get that volume in because every time they land one, you need to double up that volume. So there we go. That's the tail of the tape. Essentially, we see Magomed using his side kick to good effect, staying disciplined like a true champion, and congrats to him on his double champ
Well
world
done.
championship title.
Well done. Congratulations. So we'll continue this journey next week as we look at more and more of the World Championships divisions. Again, if people have a real preference or an absolute barn raiser of a match that you want us to review, let us know on the socials and we will get onto that. But until next week, see you soon.
See you then.